Omar, how you doing?
Hey, happy election day.
Happy election day. God, I am ready for it to be over. Goodness gracious. I must have gotten like 300 messages yesterday, texts telling me to go vote. It doesn't matter if you just say stop. They'll just send it from a different phone number. How is this legal? I don't understand. How is spamming legal? It's so ridiculous. I just want the next president to make this legal. That's literally all I want. All I want. We have a new speaker on the board, JV Capital. What do you got for us?
Thanks. Yeah. Obviously on election day, I think when they go back and write the book on Elon, I think this past 2 months of him supporting Trump, a CEO who could just put his head down and just move on and mind his own business, this may have been his greatest achievement because the pivot is so notable. And I'm always wondering what he must have seen, either in his communications with the government or in his own dashboard, that things are falling apart and we need to pivot. And he's the only CEO to pivot, kind of like the when he bought Twitter. He knew he had to pivot and buy it. And I think this is just a remarkable day to see a CEO of the past 2 months. I don't want to say Trump's going to win yet, but if he does win, I think all CEOs have been put on notice that you gotta get involved in politics, and Elon is gonna change the trajectory for a lot of Americans with this move. And I think I'll always remember this more than anything. Even if he goes to Mars, I'll remember what he did here, saving free speech, giving giving us a chance to have a financial future in this country. I just think Elon is the greatest. That's my comment.
All right. Let us start. Elon is the greatest, JB Capital says. Omar, anything to add to that? I don't want to make today about election. I am sick of this election cycle. I'm about to puke elections. All right. Omar doesn't want. We talked about this yesterday too. So if you want to listen to politics, you can listen to yesterday's space. I guess one question, Omar. Let's relate it back to Tesla investors. Whether Trump gets elected or Kamala Harris gets elected, will Elon's role at Tesla change at all?
No.
Great. Okay, let's move on. Okay, Dallas.
Yeah, did you see that clip I tagged you in that was referring on MSNBC? Rachel Maddow was mentioning how all the contracts that SpaceX has are going to evaporate because of Elon hitching himself to Trump. Did you see that one?
No, I didn't.
Okay, I'll retag you. I just thought it was notable since it
Just
tied into
give us a summary. Is that the only summary? Anything else?
It was a super short clip. It was about 15 seconds long, but she obviously Orange Man bad, and now that Elon has attached himself to Trump, she's the biggest Elon hater in the world. But she was like, basically saying, "Wow, bold move there, Elon, because now you can kiss all those sweet SpaceX military contracts goodbye." So,
Who's
she's
sorry, who
basically
said this?
politicizing him the same way she does Trump. There's a host on MSNBC. I think she's still there. Rachel Maddow. She's kind of the Tucker of the left.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. I mean, what will the government do? Go to Putin?
And the idea that taxpayers should actually be forced to pay more for inferior technology just because the guy who's the CEO of one of the companies didn't vote for your candidate. This is exactly the reason why Elon's saying these guys need to be kicked out of office. It's not about doing what's best for the country. It's about doing what's best for the party. And, I think what Rachel Maddow said there really exemplifies that. And frankly, it's just ignorant. Does she not realize that there is no replacement for SpaceX? Does she not realize that the military is using Starshield because it's the best technology in the world? I mean, the US military isn't just going to buy, some crappy technology. They really have to vet this thing to insane standards that are much higher than in the consumer market. And I think that speaks volumes. They just increased their budget for satellite services from, I think, 1 billion to 12 billion. And I'm guessing that SpaceX is going to take the majority of that.
Thank you, JC.
I would not take any pundit on MSNBC seriously at all. As far as I can throw them.
Yeah,
I mean,
these are entertainment channels.
Yeah,
they're
it's
not
entertainment.
news channels. These are a lot of the mainstream media is just entertainment. What they want
Yeah.
is you to click on the articles, your eyeballs, so they can sell the ads, etc. Thank you,
And-
everybody, for go ahead, JC.
Yeah, I was just going to say, who do you think the C-level suite of ExxonMobil, Valero, Shell, all of these folks, you know who they're like. So are you going to stop going to a gas station to fill up your ICE vehicle? Of course not. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for letting me know. Your code check number in YouTube live chat, AME 115, Emmanuel Huna 118. I appreciate it. Okay. Alexander, I think, did some research after yesterday's episode into Atlas by Boston Dynamics. I would really like to understand the different strategies that are happening on the robotics front, especially humanoids. There are going to be a lot of companies playing in this field, and some big companies, some no names. Let's kind of get a gauge across the playing field as things develop. So Alexander looked into some of the aspects of Atlas. Alexander, would you like to give us an overview?
Sure. So I looked into the sensor set that they use. It seems that they're using vision sensors, a combination of color cameras and the LiDAR and depth sensors, and then proprioceptive sensors, optical encoders, gyroscopes, accelerometers, initial measurement units, which is shortened with IMU. So compared to Optimus, Optimus is not using LiDAR, obviously. So that's a bit different approach, in my opinion.
So sorry, Atlas. So you're saying Atlas has LiDAR, right?
Yep.
Okay, how many do we know?
If you look at the head, it seems to be like 6 to 7 sensors there. I don't know how many of them is LiDAR.
Okay. All right. So, but you know 100% that it has LiDAR.
That is what I've seen, and I've checked several sources on it. So
Okay. So it's, and then another thing I notice is this weighs about 190 pounds as opposed to 120 for Optimus. So that could also play into number of sensors, or the lower efficiency of the humanoid. And I think the applications, the design purposes are different for the two humanoids, right, Alexander?
Can you say that again?
I think the applications, the applications intended for the two humanoids are a little different. I think
Yes.
Boston Dynamics Atlas is more for high agility, high mobility, and purpose-specific applications, as opposed to a more generalized purpose for Optimus, is my understanding.
Yes, this is probably true, because it seems like Atlas is going to be mainly for industry. If you compare to Optimus, it doesn't have tactile sensors in the hands and so on. You use the tactile sensors for more delicate operations with the hands, like folding laundry and stuff. And Atlas does not have that.
Don't you think Optimus will also have tactile sensors at some point?
Optimus have the tactile sensors, and
Okay.
Atlas does not.
Okay, I see. Okay, great. And then, is it true that Atlas used to use hydraulic, but now they're switching to electric as well, just like Optimus?
Yes, it's all electric now.
Okay. What else have you picked up from your research?
Well, it seems when you look at the videos, you can see that Atlas actually fails at one point to put the engine cover into the rack of other engine covers. And you can see it kind of like backs off rapidly. And it seems to me that they are using, they are mapping the torque curve of the motors to detect that it's actually hitting something, and they just backtrack the coordinates for the arms. So I think the legs and so on has like some foundation model that keeps it balanced, and then the upper part is kind of a industrial robot solution, which just works independent of the legs. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much. Sorry, I'm having some hardware issues with my phone today. Okay, let me see what else. What else? We talked yesterday about the Hyundai ownership. Is it 80%? We said, right? Has Hyundai announced any sort of plans to get them on the production lines?
Not what I've seen, but it is Hyundai. It must be like engine covers Hyundai. It's
Okay.
a perfect fit.
Okay. So, all right. So, I mean, these are very different projects. It looks for. I don't even know if they're going to be competing with each other. Omar, what do you think? Omar just gave a thumbs up. I guess he doesn't think they're going to compete. Maybe he's busy. Hustle Town, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't think they'll be competing, but I do feel that when Optimus is feature complete, it'll just decimate anything that's specialized. It'll have a leg up on anything else. So, in that way, it'll be competing and will destroy the competition.
Okay. Alexander, Elon has repeated a bunch of times that Optimus will enter production in 2025 and will enter volume production in 2026. Do you think those are reasonable timelines, or would you add some Elon time to it?
I'm a bit skeptical of that because they aiming for a consumer market as their end goal. Yeah, maybe for industry and like internal use in the factory. Yeah, sure, but I don't think it will hit the consumer market by then.
Can you elaborate some more, maybe some specific reason? What's one specific reason other than Elon is usually late to, kind of, it's not going to happen by 2025, 2026?
Okay, consumer market needs a really safe solution. You can't have Optimus like fall over and crush your kid or set your house on fire. So it's a whole nother safety layer on the consumer market than it is for industry. And I mean, industry, I can understand that industry is really not a big market in itself. So current industrial robot market is valued to around $16 billion. And it's set to grow to about 41 billion by 2030. So it's not like a huge market in itself by revenue.
Okay, so you want to see a high reliability on Optimus's side, just like FSD, before we can go wide, high volume production on the consumer market, right? But that's not the case with FSD, right? FSD, people can opt to buy or subscribe to it today and start using it today, even though it has 1.9 of reliability so far.
Yeah, and the conclusion?
And the vehicles are also 2-ton death machines, so safety is obviously very important. So why the different expectation from the two markets?
Well, FSD is kind of a different ball game. It's kind of you are driving in a two-dimension world, whilst Optimus is moving in a 3D world. So it's a kind of different ballpark, I believe.
Okay, Puzzle Town, what do you think?
I have to agree with Alexander there. I think being able to take over in the vehicle, that's a whole different kind of layer of security. But if he's or Optimus is cooking something and towel gets, I mean, it's harder to take over when the towel catches on fire. So yeah, I think it'll be a little bit slower. You're gonna need a lot more nines of reliability. I want to see this thing 10 Tebow and then stand back up, and just be a little more, safe when it comes to falling over and whatnot.
Thank you, JC.
Yeah, do you think they may do this similar to the way they did the FSD beta program and the early access? Because just like autonomy with FSD, you need those real world miles, the data coming in. And I could see a scenario where they do get it out to certain consumers in 2026, but on an extremely limited basis and almost like with I wasn't there in the early days like Omar, but I'm assuming that everybody that got FSD, the first wave that got it, knew that hey, this could do the worst thing at the worst time, so always be ready, and you're the one that's responsible, and all of that sort of stuff.
I'm not sure, but let's kind of go around the board real quick and guess when will Tesla produce and deliver the 1000th Optimus? Okay, so let's start with Alexander. 1000th, Alexander.
For external customers or internal?
External.
2029.
Wow, that's a lot longer than what Elon said. You're talking 3-4 years later. Wow. Okay, so you're very conservative on this. I mean, generally speaking, you do have a conservative bias, right, Alexander? If I
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
Swedish. I need to be.
Okay. Hustle Town, what do you think?
1,000 external. I'd say late 2027.
Okay. Interesting. So, like I said earlier, I'm going to have these 10-15 minute recaps at the end of each episode on YouTube. You can reach that at the end of at the top of your screens. You can reach the YouTube channel through the link at the top of your screens. And it's going to be a continuation of the spaces here. We're going to keep these spaces on X to 60 to 90 minutes, depending on quality of the discussion. And it's going to be followed by a 10-15 minute recap on YouTube. During those recaps, I'm kind of thinking about maybe building a DCF based on conversations here. And I think that will also inform the conversations in X as well, forcing us to focus on material topics. One of them is this. One of them is how fast will Optimus project ramp? Omar, are you available?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me ask you something. So yesterday, there was news that OpenAI hired a Meta engineer to lead their robotics efforts. Did you see that news?
No, I didn't see that.
Okay. Right. We talked about it in yesterday's AI amateurs space. Let me pull it up. Caitlin Kalinowski announced on X 19 hours ago, I'm delighted to share that I'm joining OpenAI to lead robotics and consumer hardware. Consumer hardware. She says, in my new role, I will initially focus on OpenAI's robotics work and partnerships to help bring AI into the physical world and unlock its benefits for humanity. And Robert Scoble said, he knows this person and her previous work, and he's very impressed by her. So this is, I mean, even though OpenAI has had a couple of steps like partnership with Figure AI, or an investment into physical intelligence, he says, this is when I start paying attention to their efforts because he's impressed by her. Caitlin Kalinowski. What do you think about this step by OpenAI? Do you think this is a direct shot at Tesla?
Well, I don't know who Caitlin Kalinowski is. I trust Scoble though, but it sounds like they're kind of getting into robotics in some capacity. I don't know if they're going to do a full humanoid or something simpler, but it sounds like they're exploring this. I mean, it makes sense if you think about it. I think robotics is really going to be $1 trillion market, right? And how do you get to AGI without a body, right? So the definition of AGI is, well, it can do most tasks that a human can do, but obviously if you don't have a body, there's a lot of things you're not going to learn about the world. You can read the entire internet, but there's a lot of things you can learn just from walking on the street, looking, being physically in the world, right? You don't want these models of the future to just be constrained to your web browser. You want them to actually be able to manipulate the physical world. If you say, hey, go make me some coffee, it should be able to go do that. So I think it's kind of natural that they would be exploring something here. I'm eager to hear more about what they're planning. I don't know if I would say it's a shot at Tesla at this point as much as just the industry and really multiple companies across the world are realizing this is going to be $1 trillion market. And obviously, Sam and Elon have their history and their sort of relationship with each other that may have influenced it a little bit. But it's just normal competitive dynamics. When you see $1 trillion market, everybody's going to be interested in that market. So it shouldn't really come as a surprise, though I'm eager to see what they really can come up with. Obviously, they've been a company that has been shipping models and web-based software in the past. They have never been a hardware company, and they're already projected to lose $14 billion next year, just literally on inference, right? So, it does kind of make you wonder, okay, what is their foray into making consumer products going to look like? But hey, I mean, it's OpenAI. They could probably train some incredible models for a robot that could really give Tesla a run for their money in the robot brain category.
Thanks, Omar.
Oh, also, so I was talking to somebody and they told me FSD 13 has started shipping to a few Tesla employees. It's not like at the stage where it's at all Tesla employees, but the sort of, wave zero or like the small core group of people, you're talking like the key executives and stuff like that. They've now been sent V13. So he said V13 definitely out to some employees already. Here it feels more natural and confident in weird situations. Also helpful stuff like telling you when the camera needs cleaning and even showing a picture of dirty camera right when the drive ends. So next step would be it goes out to the wave one. That would be most Tesla employees, even like a retail employee or a service center employee. And then usually about, 24 hours or so after that, it would go out to early access. So we are seeing some progress there with V13. Um, there is also supposed to be a new build of 12562 front end on the highway that's going to be rolling out this week. So they've said we're going to see some FSD updates, particularly end to end on the highway for most people this week. I think that's looking on track. And then, V13 early access, they're not too far off the target there. It's early November. They were targeting end of October. So hopefully that can get into early access cars within the next week or two.
Okay. Alexander, is your point on Optimus or FSD?
FSD.
Okay, let's stick with Optimus for a second. This is a topic that is obviously, according to Elon, and I agree, represents majority of the future intrinsic value of Tesla. And thank you, Omar, for the news that FSD 13 is starting to roll out to a few cars, and then I have to follow that with employees later on, and I will keep an eye on that. But Optimus right now is the topic, and potential competition from OpenAI. Earlier, we discussed Atlas. Alexander gave us an overview of the sensors and its status and recent changes to the Atlas project. We haven't heard from Figure AI lately, but they're also producing a number of humanoids as well. So lots of players. Now, Elon, in a recent interview about a week ago, said by 2040, he expects there will be more humanoids than humans. So he estimated about 10 billion humanoids by 2040. Alexander, you mentioned you expect 1,000th to be produced around 2029. So do you think the 10 billion figure is also very optimistic then? Or do you think it's going to go from 1,000 to 10 billion in 10 years?
When you have a good solution, you can actually scale this form factor really fast, because it's not like building a car. Optimus is only a 30th of a Model 3, when you think about the material used for building it. So I think you can scale the product really fast. But getting the 1,000 out first, the same year you will probably be able to have a production of like 100,000 units easily.
Okay. Omar, do you agree with that timeline? 1,000 later this decade, maybe 2028, 2029, and then 10 billion by 2040.
It's really difficult to predict what the rollout of robotics is going to look like, but you can bet that Tesla's schedule is going to be aggressive on what they want to achieve.
Okay. So we don't have any specific from Omar, but it'll be aggressive compared to other companies, he says.
So I think this is really the key thing in robotics is with FSD, I recently recorded 3 videos. They were all zero intervention, very challenging stuff. At one point, a cyclist just jumped in front of the car. You can see that in my pin video, and it reacted faster than I could. And now they've got V13 coming. It's going to be even better. What we're seeing demonstrated is that even on hardware 4, forget hardware 5 or hardware 6, it's able to actually move through chaos. Dense urban environments, it's able to navigate through it safely. And as we build out this compute, as we advance the technology, the data with V13 scaled up almost 5 times the data set. What you're really seeing is this capability of a computer being able to move around the world safely, advancing quite rapidly. And I think that's going to actually, for robotics, make it consumer ready probably sooner than people expect. And when you've got companies like OpenAI throwing capital at this, you've got companies like Nvidia throwing capital like this, you've got people like Elon Musk going after this. That's a materially different environment for robotics than in the past when research institutions like Boston Dynamics and academia were really driving the agenda.
Full 2035.
In the past, there were limitations on batteries, for instance, with materials. Materials have gotten better. I understand software is still developing. Are there any material limitations to make tens of millions of these bots?
Alexander.
No, not really. It's mostly it's a battery pack. There's obviously a computer, and then it's rest is aluminium and plastics, pretty much, and some copper for the actuators.
I mean, the issue isn't that there isn't material in the ground. If you think about just the amount of metal involved in a robot, it's far less than a car. So that's not an issue. The battery needs are far smaller. The issue is just building out the supply chain, right? For cars, any part you need, you need a wheel, you need this, you need a tire. There is already an existing supply chain for millions of these things. That allows you to leverage economies of scale, sell the thing at actually a crazy low price considering all the work that went into it and producing all the parts. With Optimus and the robotics industry, that supply chain is going to have to be built from the ground up. You remember Tesla saying there were no actuators and no motors on the market that met our need. We had to custom design almost all of them.
Okay, it's been 30 minutes since this space has been on. We've had several hundreds of people through the space, if not 1,000 plus already. And we have about 100 people on YouTube. But the like count is 161. And I cannot tell you how discouraging this is. Fans need to show up. If we don't get to 1,000 likes per episode, Tesla Live will not survive. So we're going to take a moment for you to take action or leave the space. Either take action or leave the space. So the link at the top of our screens. So here's how it's going to work from now on. We're going to start at 200 likes, and every half hour, we're going to add 200 likes. Otherwise, the space will end. Okay? So we're going to wait until it gets to 300 likes, or the space will end. Okay, 200. We're going to do this again in about 20 minutes to get to 300. Omar, let's switch to FSD. You mentioned earlier that FSD V13 is starting to roll out, and hopefully it'll be in wide release in about a couple of months here. Wide release, in my mind, is more about majority of eligible cars have it. So early next year, hopefully it'll get to wide release. Let's estimate in your mind how much FSD revenue will Tesla generate in 2025? Kind of order of magnitude. Actually, no, we can do better than that. Maybe we can talk about how many subscriptions, how many purchases, at what price. And Elon put out a target of superhuman reliability by Q2 2025. maybe supervised network in California and Texas sometime next year. So how much do you think Tesla will generate from FSD in 2025?
So I think in 2024 they're going to do about 3 billion based on the best estimates I've seen from analysts at Goldman Sachs and others. And you just look at their revenue recognition in the most recent quarter of, 320 million, and they're going to continue to recognize that going forward. It gives you kind of a window into what we're looking at here. Obviously, revenue recognition isn't the complete revenue picture, but if they're doing hundreds of millions a quarter, if they're releasing new features and driving revenue recognition, including releasing unsupervised features or things like that, that's kind of an easy way to drop some revenue into the top line. So I think in 2025, the key is really Europe and China. Right now, only 33% of their customer base can even run FSD. That obviously limits the revenue potential because, why would you want to buy something when you don't know when you're going to be able to run it? But we are seeing movement, certainly in China, for maybe the first half of the year, if we're lucky. In Europe, it's looking more like it's going to be a Q4 kind of story, if not a Q1 2026. But the timing on that could be material in that you not only accelerate the sales of new cars, have a higher purchase rate or subscription rate, you're able to introduce subscription into the European market and the Asian market. And all the financial benefits that come from that flowing through, as well as the sales on the older cars, that could, I think, push revenue up materially. In 2025, assuming they roll out to at least one new market, I would expect to see between $5 to $10 billion of FSD revenue, not counting, sales of the vehicle or anything like that, just counting FSD packages, subscriptions, and revenue recognition of past sales. I think they could easily see that type of growth. Right now, the penetration is relatively low, especially since it's North America specific. So where we fall in that range, I think, depends on the timing of international rollouts.
Okay, Alexander.
Omar, when do you think ROI will be equal to the capex spent on the FSD?
Probably this year they're spending more on GPUs than they're bringing in as revenue. I think probably, there's if we're saying maybe $1.5 to $3 billion in revenue, I'm pretty sure the spending on the new data center is in excess of 5 billion. So if you look at it from that perspective, it's like, wow, okay, maybe you're not charging enough. You really need to see a lot of growth. But of course, these data centers are assets. They're not just necessarily tied to the revenue that's coming in this period. You could turn around and sell them and make quite a bit of money. They're almost quite liquid in that sense. They can be used for all kinds of different purposes. So, this is really kind of like building a factory, right? You could say, well, oh, you spent so much money building the factory that it eliminated your sales from the quarter. But this factory is going to continue to produce revenue for many quarters to come.
Alexander, what's your estimate of FSD revenue in 2025? So the reason why I'm asking is because in Q3, Tesla recognized hundreds of millions of dollars of FSD revenue, and it really helped the bottom line and the top line, and helped the stock increase quite a bit. But there are people who are extrapolating that into Q4, even though the CFO said the margins probably aren't going to be as good in Q4 than Q3. So I'm kind of trying to look beyond Q4. So try to get an estimate for people's how they're thinking about 2025 FSD revenue. Alexander, you asked a good question. When will return on investment equal capex spend? I agree with Omar's answer. I think Tesla is in investment mode still, and it's probably going to be for a while. And but while Alexander thinks about his FSD revenue estimate, Omar, what do you think?
The target to launch unsupervised FSD, even in a few markets in California and Texas, I think could materially affect the perception. If this is a conversation about a supervised ADAS system and, hey, yeah, you're going to have to pay attention, it's going to maybe try and kill you at times, the marketability of that, a lot of consumers, they go, well, what's the point if I still have to watch it? Even if you're just launching, I think, in a couple of markets, it has the potential for people to say, okay, let me buy this on my car and try it out. If it's getting good enough that they're starting to get to that level, maybe this is now worth subscribing and trying out or buying.
Alexander, what's your estimate?
I just brought my calculator. It's really hard to estimate because it depends on if it gets released worldwide or not, if they can recognize that revenue.
Well,
And
just make an assumption. Make an assumption.
make an assumption. Can you give me like 2 more minutes, please?
Okay, sure. Bull 2035.
Hey, Omar, when you're talking 5 to 10 billion, how much of that is subscription versus outright buying FSD?
In my mind, the net present value of subscriptions versus buying is about the same. Subscription probably is actually a little more over time. Obviously, from an accounting perspective, with subscription, you only recognize a few $100s, whereas with FSD, you're recognizing a much larger portion up front. But you can just kind of look at the sales that they have today. I don't know what the mix of subscription and purchase is. I'm guessing it's heavily tilted towards subscription, but they're doing, just based on the revenue, if you kind of extrapolate out the revenue recognition, that's probably about, $1 billion. The release of V13, I think, will allow them to unlock a new chunk, reversing, bringing Smart Sum into other countries. All of these are going to continue to allow them to unlock chunks of revenue unsupervised. So you're going to see revenue recognition of this scale. Obviously, that is a fraction of the subscriptions and purchases that are coming in. I myself just bought FSD on my Model 3 Performance. I was subscription for a while. I got those referral credits and I said, let me go ahead and buy it. So sent Tesla a few $1,000s. I think, both are probably going to continue to grow. Subscription will be more popular, but you'd really probably have to see upfront purchases grow quite a bit to really and be continue to be a popular choice to really see much stronger revenue growth. But really, the subscription number is what really matters. I mean, sorry, not the subscription number, but just the total user number. If the user number is growing, that's going to lead to strong recurring cash flows over time and strong revenue recognition over time, whether they purchase or subscribe.
Alexander.
Okay, so if we assume all hardware 4 cars and they go wide release in the world for 2025, about 2.5 billion.
So you expect 2.5 billion in 2025. Okay. Interesting. Bull 2035.
Yeah, that's why I asked the question to Omar of if he's considering the 8,000 or the subscription. Because if I do the math, Omar can clarify, or Yaman, you may know, but do we have about 6.5 million hardware 3 or hardware 4 on the road right now? And if you divide that out by 10 billion, it's more than the subscription price if everybody signs up. So that's what I was trying to figure out where Omar was coming from.
Omar.
Yeah, I mean, if you just take the 5 million cars that are out there, 6 million, actually they did 7 million cars recently, right? So 7 million cars, and then they're going to make what, 2 million more in the next year. So you're really talking about 9 million cars. You multiply that by 8,000, that's, $72 billion. So that's really the TAM you want to sort of look at. Whether they're actually allowing people to pay that up front today or whether that's going to come in every month, this is really just kind of an accounting thing, right? Tesla's essentially financing the purchase. And we don't know exactly what subscription prices are going to be around the world, how much they're going to go around. But yeah, I mean, if you did that all subscription, then it would be, I think, about $900 million. But if you look at their revenue recognition today, just on the deferred revenue, it's probably more than $1 billion. Goldman estimates that it's at about 3 billion for the year. So there's got to be a mix of purchases and subscriptions that are uh, leaning more in the direction of it not being 100% subscription. But really, that's why I said you want to look at the user number. If you're kind of getting caught up about, okay, well, is the revenue coming in this quarter versus future quarters? In either case, right? Whether they buy it up front, 60% is recognized and a portion is deferred to be recognized over time. Versus with subscription, you just have money coming in over time. They can cancel, they can come back in. It's really about the same value that Tesla extracts out of the car over its lifetime. So really, you just want to look at the number of users, look at the value of FSD, or try and calculate what you expect the sort of lifetime value of a car is going to be in terms of its FSD subscription revenue. And you can imagine adding two new markets, you would probably get substantial growth over the current levels. So going from 3 billion, I think, to 5 billion, if you're actually able to add Europe and China by the end of the year, is not that tall of an order. Just the revenue recognition alone from those markets would be substantial. You're talking about years and years of sales here that you're finally able to recognize the revenue for, as well as kickstarting excitement for new sales from new customer, new vehicle sales, and all of that.
Alexander, and now we're gonna make sure we get to 300 likes. Alexander?
Yeah, but like 7 million cars total is not a hardware for, or not even hardware free. It's all the hardware. So
Well,
yeah,
I mean, almost all the cars made since 2016 can be upgraded to hardware 3. Whether you're hardware 3 or hardware 4, you can run and buy the software, right? So 9 million cars times $8,000 at the end of 2024, FSD is going to have a TAM of 72 billion just for supervised, right? So the supervised TAM alone is huge. If they can even capture 5% of that, 10% of that, it's going to be a record year for FSD revenue.
Okay. We talked about Optimus, we talked about FSD. It's been about 50 minutes into the episode. We're at 225 likes. We need to get to 300 to keep the space going. The link is at the top of our screens. Take action, or we're going to go to YouTube. Okay, let's see where we are. Right now, we're at 232. That's 7 from 225. So it doesn't look like we're going to get to 300. Therefore, I sent a link to the speaker DM group. Whoever wants to join me is welcome to join as I start building a DCF for YouTube subscribers. We're going to switch to YouTube now. You can join through the link at the top of your screens. Sorry to those who I really hate doing this because there are people who actually take action, and the product is worse for them because most people don't take action. But the space can't survive if you don't get to 1,000 likes per episode. But I don't think people realize that this is critical. So this is the way it's going to have to be. Alexander.
Yeah, look, like all of us speakers, we put in so much work to bring you all like insights and facts, and the minimum effort is just going to YouTube and liking the video. It's a minimum effort, okay, and it brings so much more. If you voted in the American election, your vote is worth pretty much zero. But if you go and like the video, that's worth million times more, 100 million times more than going and voting in an election. Okay, so please just go like the video. It's so easy and it brings so much. Please just like the video.
Yeah. JC.
Yeah, thanks for that international election interference there, Alexander. That was a joke, by the way. But yes, as they say, democracy dies in darkness. And if we don't have Tesla Live, we will all be in darkness. Don't let democracy die. Go hit the like button.
Yeah, I don't understand why people just don't do it. And it's literally 2 seconds and it's free, you know? And I think the value this space brings is real material. And as evidenced by as news drop, as Tesla's tweets come, Tesla AI teams tweets come, we see different interpretations of what's being said. And there's a distinct difference between people who have been coming to this space regularly versus people who've been going other places, other source of news, other source of insights. The takes are usually correct if they come from people who regularly visit Tesla Live versus the other takes are just kind of like really, really off the ball. So off target. So I think the value is definitely there, but the growth numbers are not high enough right now. So okay, Alexander, can you come through that StreamYard link? Would you be able to join? Maybe we can do it in the forecaster Optimus.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Okay, all right, I'll see you all there. Alexander, can you hear me?
Yes.
Alexander? You're on mute.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Let me
Nice.
see if I can switch the speaker to my. Yeah, it's weird. My Bluetooth AirPods don't. Oh, Hustleton's here too. Let's bring him up here. Hustletown, can you hear me? Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. I just need to figure out how to get my freaking audio to my AirPods here, but
We need to see you live. You have to turn on your camera and show us your favorite hummus recipes, as I told you yesterday.
Sorry, I cut out for a second. I'm trying to get my setup here. I use my phone for everything. So, what was
yeah,
that, Alexander?
Oh, I was talking about Yaman.
yeah. Still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay,
Sounds
perfect.
good.
It worked. Great. Okay, let's build a DCF from scratch. How do you guys like that?
Nice.
How do you like them apples? It's going to take a long time. It's going to take months to build this thing. But we can get started by typing in Tesla. How do you like
Can't
that?
stop us.
All right, so we talked about Optimus today, okay? And let's see, Q1 2025, Q2 2025, Q3 2025, Q4 2025. And if you just do that, that should work. Perfect. I'm not really familiar with Google Sheets as much as I am with Excel. But let's start with here, and then let's do it until, whoops. Oh, somebody else just jumped in. Let me see. Hold on. Who is that? Neural net. Perfect. Now it's a party. Now,
Hello.
hello. Neil, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Yep.
Perfect. All right. So we're going to build a Tesla DCF on Google Sheets. Okay. We're going to focus on Optimus today, just the unit count. Okay. And then ASP, we can just say 25K or something. Neil, were you in the space today?
I was in and out. I had to take a couple of calls, but I did hear you guys talk about FSD revenue a little bit, as well as some bot talk in the beginning. I was kind of out in the middle.
Okay, great. Neil, let's start with you, since Alexander spoke in this space. How many Optimus do you expect in 2025? Elon says it's going to start production in 2025 and then go volume production in 2026.
Well, I would say if I recall a number of 1 million by 2030. So I'd work backwards from that on an S-curve type scenario and say that in 2025 it's going to be some initial production batch that they're just trying to figure out. So probably something in the less than 1,000, maybe 1,000 a week or less in 25. So 50,000, 55,000.
You expect 50,000 in 2025?
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like a coffee bet. I'll take you on that coffee bet.
I'm good for it.
There's no way that's happening. Well, I think Tesla will have to first test it out in its JC's here too. Great. We have 5 people. I think this is valuable. Like, I think a DCF on Tesla is valuable, starting from scratch,
Yep.
And we're going to start with the most impactful product, Optimus. And then we're going to refine this as we go along. And And then I think hopefully over time people will join us here as well. Tesla Life has to grow on all platforms. That includes X, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. So we already have a couple dozen followers on Spotify, by the way, which is cool. All right. Alexander, Neil says 50,000. What do you think for 2025?
I think maybe they should be happy if they get to 500.
Yeah, I agree. Hustle Town, do you have any strong opinions on this?
Now, when we're talking about how many they're going to be producing, are we talking about just for their manufacturing purposes or things that they could eventually sell?
Good question. Just external. Only external sales.
Yeah, I'll be a little more conservative than Alexander. It'll be less than 500 for sure.
Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
I should
I
revise
didn't
my
mean
number.
external sales. I did not mean external sales. There's 0 external sales for 2025, I don't think.
Yeah, I
Okay,
didn't want to
zero
go there
external
because
sales.
there's always a possibility, but
Yeah, I was thinking all internal, just manufacturing.
No, just external. The internal ones, they're not even going to show up on revenue item. They're not going to show up in COGS. They're probably going to be just on the balance sheet as equipment, property equipment, PP&E line item, and they're going to be depreciated as they kind of run through them. It's just prototypes, prototype stages. Like, do we talk about how many prototypes Tesla is going to build of the new Cybercab next year? No. So
quite honestly, I think we could probably skip these first two columns of 2025 and 2026 then.
you think so? Just go straight to 2027?
I mean, unless anybody thinks it's going to be a little bit faster than that, but I think it'll be rough going. But they'll get there.
Okay, Neil, what do you think? Do you think externals doesn't start until 2027? Do you agree with Hustletown?
I think I do.
Okay.
Yep.
And JC?
I think they're actually going to be able to do it in 2026. I think that they're going to get some out. Just like the great immortal words of the Swedish band ABBA, gimme, gimme, gimme a man after midnight. I think they're going to say, gimme Optimus after midnight. Come on, Alexander.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Okay.
You think they're gonna produce sex bots? Tesla sex bot?
All for Sweden.
We don't
All
need
right.
sex bots.
I gotta switch this to some. I'll switch these to Excel later on. I can't do Google Sheets. Okay, 2027. Let's start. JC is the only one at Hustletown. Oh wow, Crunch just sent $20 super sticker. Thank you, Crunch. I appreciate it. All right, yeah, Crunch. It may have something to do with your country. I'm guessing. All right, I agree with the 2027 take on this, and I think it's going to be very small. So let's say 1,000 units in 2027. External sales 2027, 1,000 units. Okay. Actually, it might be even less. So it takes about a year to get to 1,000 a week for the vehicles, right? Maybe a couple of quarters, 2 to 3 quarters, and then another 2 to 3 quarters to get to a few thousand per week. Now, I think 1,000 probably is fine for the first quarter, especially if they have 2 years of internal testing. 5,000 for the last quarter of 2027. And then Alexander, you were, in this space, you were at 1,000 by 2029, right?
Didn't you say 10,000?
No, I said 1,000. I think that's too conservative. I think that might be too
Yeah,
conservative.
it's too conservative.
Okay.
I
So
actually agree that is too conservative. I kind of like when I said it, I was like, that may be too conservative.
yeah. So how do you guys want to increase this? Do you think it's going to be kind of constant rate here, exponential for the first few quarters, and then straight line and into an S curve kind of thing? I mean, he did say 1 million per year production rate by the end of 2030 at the All-In Summit, but I think that's a little aggressive.
But is it though? I mean, he's talking about a 50%. Like he's in a median of 50%. Like he might get it right or wrong with that kind of margin of error. What if he's underselling it? What if they're like going to be able to put these things out much faster than any of the vehicles?
They should,
Yeah,
right?
I believe
Less
so.
parts, right? Less parts, smaller object, no paint. Should be much easier to produce.
Agree.
Yeah, but they haven't even started. There's not even a permit for production equipment. We don't know where it's going to be. What vehicle have you seen Tesla has produced 1 million, gotten from 0 to 1 million per year in the first 5 years? Combined with the fact that we haven't even seen a permit, that's going to be at least another 2 years. I think I don't think it's not impossible, but I don't think it's a 50-50 type of guesstimate here. He was also off the cuff. You know what I mean? Like he's kind of just pulling things out of thin air right now when it comes to Optimus production plans. If you watch that All-In podcast, he took a few seconds to kind of look in the air and think about it and then answer the question.
You kind of have to look the design and be sure. But I mean, to produce the body, you can already buy like the production equipment. It's not that much different in machines. When it comes to the CNC machines, that's gonna machine the body parts. If you know the rough dimensions of the parts, it's not gonna be any problem to plan that already. You
Right.
won't buy the production equipment, you can plan it already.
But I agree with you. I mean, I think you should take a conservative approach with the DCF in general.
I mean, here's what I know. Okay. I built a very extensive DCF back in 2018. Actually, I built it 2017 and I shared it 2018. And I revised it throughout 2019. And then when I look back on it this year, I was optimistic literally on everything. Okay. On every product, every quarter, every margin, everything. Service, literally every input proved optimistic. So, with that in mind, the goal here is to be 50-50, to be accurate. So, if you look at the products number, so this in a couple of months, this is going to look all products by quarter, services, robotaxis, what have you. And when we look back at this in 5 years, say 2030, we want to be like, okay, we got half right, half wrong, and even on the wrong ones, we were pretty close. That's the goal. All right. So, Alexander, since you're our robotics expert on the board right now, what do you think we should ramp to? So let's say we started at 1,000 in Q4 2027 external deliveries. What are we ramping up to by 2030?
If you produce the first 1,000 in Q4 2027, you could be at probably 50,000 by Q1 2028. I don't think the production ramp will be the limiting factor here. I think demand will be, because
Okay, well, that's part of it, right? That's part of it. So you're also forecasting demand here because this is a DCF. This is not a production schedule.
Yeah, this is so hard. Q1 2028, 50,000.
Alexander,
That's
I'm
yeah,
curious.
I don't
Oh,
know.
sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jason.
I'm curious why you think demand won't be there. Because I will tell you that I've talked to a lot of people, just regular Joe Blow Americans, traveling through Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, and where there's not a lot of Teslas. And when I get conversations going with folks, they move it from my Tesla. Obviously, they're kind of intrigued. You don't see a lot of them, but it goes to that robot they saw on some video from the 1010 event. A lot of people are talking about that. That has definitely started making it into the regular Joe Blow American internet algorithm, if you will. And I'm just curious, like you seem to think that there won't be demand, like that production capabilities won't be the bottleneck, but it'll be demand. And I'm just not.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of interest.
I don't mean that there will be no demand. I'm just saying that production will not be the limiting factor. It's not going to be like, oh, we have this 1 million pre-orders and we can't deliver the units. Like it's production will not be the limiting factor. It will be demand. So, but I'm not saying demand will be low. I'm just saying demand will be the limiting factor, not production.
Now, and this demand is probably industrial in the beginning, right? I can't imagine them deploying these bots to the general public first. So this is commercial demand in the beginning, or no?
Well, for our
Most likely.
purposes, here, it doesn't matter which one it is.
Okay.
Well, it kind of does, because if you sell to industry, you can charge a lot more than you can do for the general public.
And we have the utility.
I don't think so, because I mean, if you look at what Hertz had to do to buy, Neil, you have to mute yourself when you're not talking. Thank you. If you look at what Hertz had to do when they were getting the Model 3s, they had to, just like anybody else, pay the same price, get in line, wait for deliveries. I don't see Tesla following a different approach. I mean, we can talk about this with Omar in Tesla Lab tomorrow too, but I think it's going to be, if you want it in your household, you got to buy it. Just like if you want it in your factory, you got to buy it the same. You got to order it. You got to pay the higher price and then wait in line.
I don't think they would be the same unit that you use for industry, that you use for the general consumer.
Yeah, I don't know, because Elon's going for high scalability. I think they want to nail down this hardware, and I think they're going to wrap the same one as quickly as possible. Just like they don't have a separate Tesla vehicle for fleet ownership versus consumer ownership. Okay, let's start out slow. Like, honestly, I'd rather be on the conservative side than the optimistic side. So let's decide on some sort of a production ramp exponential growth rate. So constant growth rate for exponential growth curve. Let's say 100%, but we got to start a little slower. So 100, 1,000, 2,000, 100, 200, 400, 800, 1,600. Okay. And then let's go. Do we want to go with 100% still every quarter? I mean, 100% per quarter is a massive growth rate. Like, is there an example of a product? I mean, this is a pretty complex product, so it's not an iPhone, Is there another example of 100% growth rate on a hardware?
Yeah, but like when I get a drawing from a customer, usually the production ramp is much faster. Maybe the first year, let's just say if the peak production rate is set to 500,000, then maybe the first year is 350,000 1,000, and then next year is 400, and then next year after that is 500. So you start already on a high volume.
Okay. What are the thoughts from YouTube live chat? If you have any thoughts around when production deliveries to external customers will start, how fast it will ramp, you're welcome to leave it in the live chat. And if you're listening to recording, please give it a like and leave a comment below the video. Let me just put in my kind of estimates here, and then we can discuss a bit more. Let's see, 3,200. Let's say, just keep it simple, 5,000, 10,000. Let's switch to 50%. And then let's keep it at 25,000. So you guys think this is extremely low, right?
Yes.
Yeah, this is extremely conservative.
yeah.
Does anyone believe that this is anywhere close to being accurate? No. I mean, Alexander, the other thing is like, Optimus clearly isn't going to be the only one. There's going to be, OpenAI is looking into hardware, expand into physical world with their ChatGPT AI too. So how do you think about that, Alexander? That, it's not just going to be about, even if the total number of humanoids produced in the world is 1 million per year by 2030, what percent of that is going to be Tesla Optimus, really?
It's going to depend on the ASP, I guess. I mean, Tesla is used to creating products, selling those to customers. I mean, the other guys are not really. They are not used to selling to end consumer in mass scale. So everything is about like what can the robot do? How does it look? How can you market it? I think Tesla has a good spot in this market, even if they maybe don't have the best product, seen from like function.
Okay. I can appreciate Atlas, Boston Dynamics not being focused on extreme volume and the consumer end product or end user. Maybe they're going more for industrial or military users. But OpenAI is a consumer brand, right? I mean, that's a household brand at this point. They have tens of millions of paid users, hundreds of millions of free version users. So when they produce a hardware, a humanoid or other robotics, it's going to be targeted for hundreds of millions of people, if not billions of people. I'm assuming. What do you think?
Yeah, but you need to know production in order to scale this product fast, and you have to have I don't know.
But see, here's the thing though, like earlier you said this is not going to be as complicated, complex to produce as a vehicle. And although I understand, like I appreciate that production is still going to be hard, but it's not going to be as much of a barrier as vehicles are, right? And we're not talking about, like, keep in mind, we're not talking about a Ford, GM type legacy automaker that's kind of held back by unions or the same way of doing things over the last 100 years. These, OpenAI, Sam Altman are a formidable competitor. I mean, they've kind of kept ahead of the pack on the chatbot front at the very least, even though there are hundreds of competitors. So I wouldn't write them off just by saying, they haven't produced hardware.
Yeah, but you have to have the knowledge of holding a project like this. It's not just like, oh, here's the capex, produce this. You need to have the knowledge, the machine knowledge. You have to have the knowledge of what kind of machines you need to buy, how to design the products for efficient manufacturing. It goes a lot into that kind of knowledge. And I don't think those other guys have that. Maybe they can buy this, but it will affect the ASP of the product, and that will also affect how many units they will be able to sell to the end consumer.
Okay, so you're in the same camp as Robert Scoble then, because in last night's AI amateur space, he said he expects Tesla to have 80% market share when it comes to Optimus. Are you in that ballpark?
80% seems a bit high. He said that Tesla is going to win either way because Tesla can transport the robots and so on, but I don't think that really matters. But I think these numbers are too low. If you have 100 at Q4 2027, you're gonna have 10,000 at Q1 2028, and probably 40,000, and then 80,000, and so on. It's gonna scale much faster.
I'll meet you halfway. How about that? 100,000, 5,000. So 10x, 5x, and then let's say 4x. Okay. 2.5. This is way too aggressive. 2. And then 50%. Okay.
Now we're talking.
Yeah, this is well, no, it doesn't work because this is even more aggressive than Elon.
Yeah, but it's not like you will probably cap out at some amount that would lead to Elon's number.
And just quickly as a frame of reference on manufacturing, this is definitely all demand constrained. Just a little history lesson: the iPhone in 2007 started with 1.39 million units, and in 2012 they were 125 million units. So from 1.3 million to 125. I know it's an iPhone, but still a simpler device, and those devices can scale extremely rapidly if the demand is there.
Yeah, we have Flexity on the board too now. Okay.
He's gonna tell us we all wrong.
Yeah, I mean more the merrier on the board. So Flexity, what do you think about this Optimus unit forecast?
Wait, let me see.
I didn't understand what you said.
It seems fine. I would think that it would start at 28 or 29, but it's close.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the other thing. Like, I think the starting time can be more delayed for various reasons. And it's better to be super optimistic, at least on the first couple of years. So that's a good point for Flexity. 100, let's say 500,000, 2x, and then let's go 2x for a while. Yeah, Alexander, sorry, I'd rather be super optimistic. Just I think based on my experience with the previous DCF being literally too optimistic on literally every single factor. I think I just need to be aware of my bias here. Okay. And then I'm open to kind of like, reasonable arguments and data to change it later on. But let's start from a too pessimistic perspective. Sound good?
Sure.
Okay. So over here we have 300,000 total, and that's probably about right. 300,000 per year, and about 500,000 by year end, end of 2030. Yeah. All right. Great. I think this is the first good day for our DCF. All right. And now we're going to build on other products. We're going to do Optimus. We're going to do FSC. We're going to do Robotaxis. We're going to do Model SX, 3 and Y, Cybercabs, and a bunch of other. So this is how we start. It's going to take months to build this DCF, and we'll do it together. All right, everybody?
Sure.
Sounds great.
Sounds great.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Don't forget to like and share this video with everybody you can. We need to get to 10,000 subscribers by year end. That's the goal. Thank you very much, and I'll chat with you all tomorrow. Take care.
Bye bye.
Thanks, John.